Welcome to Name Drop Me Never, the podcast that actively celebrates the art of name dropping, gratuitous or not, because we all do it. I mean, if you bump into Helena Bonham Carter or John Malkovich in the street, you're going to tell your mates, right? I mean, and why wouldn't you? It's quite a normal thing to do, and yet name dropping seems to have a very bad reputation around dinner tables and things. But I have written this book of the same name, Name Drop Me Never, and then it drops everyone's name. And I'm delighted today to have with me the one and only broadcasting legend and all-round nice guy, Mr. Matthew Wright.
Hey, how you doing, Basti? You all right?
All right, not bad.
Excellent.
He's got a very bad back.
Yes, don't get old is my advice.
Yes, no, I mean, and being 6'7", I've got a very bad back. You're actually taller than me on this couch because of your bad back.
Yeah,
and
loads of cushions.
But you're reminding me not to slouch. So let's without further ado, let's get on and ask you: are there any people you've met or that you've gone, oh my god, and you've started feeling a bit fanny about it?
I suppose my all-time number one. These are just the people I'm interested in personally. They don't figure on any sort of celebrity list generally, and most of them are dead. But in my tabloid days, I suppose I ended up having dinner with Elizabeth Taylor, which is pretty damn cool. So she was coming over. She came over to the UK to do a film awards BAFTA, and they had a press conference a few days beforehand where you could ask her various questions, and mine went along the lines of, you rose to fame in the film National Velvet. By an amazing coincidence, it's the Grand National tomorrow. Who's your money on, Liz? And she just went, you knucklehead, and laughed. And then I went on the piss after that because it was like I knew that she called me a knucklehead. So Elizabeth Taylor calls me a knucklehead. That's a page lead in 90s tabloid Britain.
Yeah.
Really the splash. And so she then sent this flunky down while I was getting pissed. And he said, Elizabeth loves you, and come and join her at the BAFTA dinner. So I went and joined her at the BAFTA dinner, sat down, didn't have the whole dinner with her. I sat around, and she made me promise two things: that I would campaign to make it easier for her to bring her dogs into the UK, because she really mattered about that, and also to campaign to get a blue plaque on the house in Hampstead.
That's right.
Where she was born. Which, by an amazing coincidence, when this campaign started, was owned by a former landlord of mine who said he had no problem with the blue plaque on it. But English Heritage, who are the biggest bunch of tosspots I have ever encountered, absolute wankers. So, no, she's got to be dead for at least 25 years before she can be dealing with it. But, of course, when it was for Dame Nanette Sibley at the Royal Opera House, they turned it around in 7 years. So and it just really pisses me off, because Elizabeth Taylor fans are probably a dying generation, and there's a house in Hampstead where she was born. Wouldn't it be lovely to have the blue plaque on in Hampstead, and one of the world's greatest ever film icons?
So is it still not there?
No.
Because there's
Still
one for
waiting
Richard Burton.
Yeah, we're still waiting for English Heritage.
So Richard Burton's got one.
Yeah.
And Elizabeth Taylor's, that's ridiculous.
A bit older.
Yeah, that's mad. That's crazy. So, yeah, I mean, that's one of those that it could have been a cringe moment, couldn't it? Because when she went knucklehead, when you said that, I thought, oh no, it's one of those cringy ones. You meet your heroes and then it goes wrong.
No, she was terrific. Absolutely terrific. Really salty. She just took a shine to me. There's no other way. So, I love Burton. So she's telling me all about the Dorchester, which room she went in, how they hid from the press, what they, lying in bed, smoking cigarettes, making love, having drinks sent up. It was, living the dream.
Oh, great. Yeah.
While everybody outside was, trying to get the story. And she's just telling me all this.
Well, it's such a buzz when you meet someone who you've seen on the big screen, you've grown up with as a kid or whatever, and you've seen them your whole life, and then you meet them and they're really nice to you and they like you.
And earthy, real people, not somebody who's, someone like that, but someone who's really engaged. I loved her.
So I had a similar thing with Emma Thompson when I just walked into a cafe, and there weren't any tables. It was a tiny little cafe in Hampstead, and I had a bit of a hangover actually myself. I was still drinking at the time and doing hospital radio, as you do, my Alan Partridge moment, and I just said to this lady with reading a newspaper, "Oh, is the seat free?" She lowered the newspaper, and there was Emma Thompson. And suddenly went, God, now I've got to ask her. Sitting there the whole time while she's eating her sandwich. And she's reading her paper, and I was thinking, I'm just sitting there. I've got to ask her if she'll do a hospital radio thing. So eventually, just as she was sort of folding her broadsheet up and getting ready to go, I said, "So I'm sorry to bother you, Emma, but would you possibly do a thing for hospital radio?" "Oh, I'd love to." And she wrote down her phone number. Said, "Call me. Here's my home phone number." And I ended up in her kitchen interviewing her for, and she was just so down to earth and lovely and normal. And
never heard a bad word about her, not one.
Yeah. No,
and that's quite an achievement in this day and age.
Yeah. She didn't read my script. But I'll let her off because she's done me so many good things. Her PA said, "Look, she's just so busy right now." Of course, she is really, really busy. It's not that she doesn't want to, but also getting people to read your script. I mean, it's like, come on, I was probably pushing it a bit there. But she wrote something lovely for the back of my first book. What more could you ask? To get an endorsement from someone like that. So anyway, so you've been a journo for a long time,
yes.
and you work for both the Sun and the Mirror, the left and the right.
Yes.
So tell us a bit about those Sun. It was Sun first, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, it was what's the book called? Stick It Up Your Punter, which I highly recommend. Highly recommend as a sort of history of the tabloids from Murdoch's entry in the market in the mid-60s, and it's a brilliant book, and it recounts loads and loads of tabloid tales. And one of the observations in the book is that throughout the hardcore slavish support of Thatcher, the majority of journalists working on the paper was said to hold left of centre views. You just didn't voice them. Basically, most people enter journalism. Many people enter journalism, or did, because they had some desire to get the truth out there. And I'm not sure many people, maybe Piers Morgan accepted, entered journalism just to make money or climb up some kind of ladder. So I'm the papers, basically the staff moved between the Mirror and the Sun all the time.
I suppose it's interesting because the Sun was in the 60s and early 70s quite left-wing.
Yeah.
And Murdoch took it over, didn't it? Or did Murdoch?
No, it was left-wing under Murdoch, and then he turned it right-wing, and then he went left-wing for Tony Blair.
He'll just go wherever the wind blows.
Exactly that.
Yeah. I mean, he follows the money.
But he said that he's always backed the winner, which I think he's always publicly backed the winner. Up until Keir Starmer, I think, it's difficult to see. We had so many prime ministers and never had elections, so you didn't have to back the winner because there wasn't a competition. But he didn't come out for Starmer, did he? He didn't come out for anybody. It was just where it went quietly.
Moving on to politics briefly, without being too time sensitive, as this will be viewed for thousands of years to come.
Millennia.
They'll be watching this when there are no humans anymore.
This is we're recording this about the day after it all got fucked up, kids. I'm telling you. If only you were here the day before yesterday. It was great.
Well, yes, but yeah, it's been a slow, steady decline politically. The world, as we anyone with some sort of brain can see, and the concept of like Britain becoming a reform-run nation or something, which some elections in the past have indicated isn't outside the realms of possibility. No. I mean, I'm already got one foot in Spain with my European passport, and I don't know if I could, because my parents grew up in Nazi Germany, right? And my mother's side was Jewish side, and my father's side not. But still, they, when you've gone through all that, or your parents have gone through all that, and the stories, and and then you see extreme right nationalism rise, and you just think to yourself, I don't want to live in that country.
No.
And should I stay and fight in the trenches? And as a journalist and as a writer, and of course, that's, the thing to do until they stand you up against a wall and shoot you. But there's another part of me, and this is the question I want to ask you. So you fight for a lot of causes, and I pointed out in the book that you have... for example, there was the £7 lawsuit that you got stuck in there, and you fought this corporation over £7, which might not mean anything to anyone, but to some, and I pointed out that, to a single mother on benefits, £7 she can't afford not to get. So it's good that people fight those things who are in a position to do so. And but is there a point where you say to yourself, right, okay, and you're getting really, say, if I get really het up about something and it means something, I'm a sensitive soul, and I get all kind of like,
Yeah,
and it
you and me
becomes
both.
too important. I make it important, and that actually can affect my well-being
Yeah.
and my spiritual, mental health, whatever. And I know that sounds a bit
No, I don't
flip,
think it does at
but
all.
it's something that I need to nurture and look after, because there is a point. There's that tipping point where, say, Farage got in, worst nightmare scenario, and it's like, I don't want to be a part of this. And yes, I love Britain, I grew up here and everything, but I'm not I'm not someone who's nationalist or anything. Is there a point where you'd say, do you know what, I'm going to chip?
Yeah. Yeah. I've already got a plan. Biggest problem I've got is my daughter is only 7, so 2029 is she's coming to the end of her primary education. I have to say, if I had to put £10 on it, which is about as much as I'm prepared to punt on our political system, I suspect we're going to end up with a rainbow progressive coalition. So I study these things very carefully, and that's why I've completely got the Brexit vote wrong. I'm an absolute expert at predicting political outcomes. But if I had to put £10 on it, I would put £10 on a rainbow coalition. However, should the worst happen, the view I've taken, it's multifaceted. One is I'm not getting any younger. 2 is I don't want my daughter to grow up in a quasi-fascist state under any circumstances if it can be avoided. I'm in a peculiar situation where Mum and I have parted but are sort of back together again, and we sort of cohabit as friends and all of this, and she has a similar view. So we are looking at schooling options abroad, somewhere where we'll be a white minority, which I'm quite happy about.
Well, it's funny because I'm an immigrant, and when I broke up with my partner temporarily, we're back together again in not a dissimilar kind of way. And I've got I went to Spain, and I had my little German passport, and
Yes,
off I
yeah.
trotted to Spain, going, thank God I got my German passport. And I couldn't afford anything in the UK, but I had just enough to get something there, so I went there. And I've been living there in this small Spanish town, not one of those places, and not Torremolinos or somewhere full of Brits. It's like completely Catalans, actually, not Spanish. And the Catalans are very Catalan. And although actually it's in Spain too, so it's Spain. But there are times where I'm walking down the street and all the school kids are walking towards you. And it's funny, isn't it? Then you get sort of like, God, I really am kind of a foreigner here. And I sat on the bus, and one of the kids like tapped me on the back for a laugh. He was being a bit of a bully. And I just sort of got up and went all British constable on him, sort of, I say, Sonny, sort of thing like that. And
6'7" of you, yeah?
yeah, 6 or 7 of me. And the old ladies on the bus were going, oh, sorry about this stupid little bully, right? He was showing off in front of his friends. They're not malicious.
No.
I find in Spain, it's kind of pretty chilled. And on the whole, everyone's lovely and friendly and treats me as an equal anyway, right? But I do get those moments where I think, God, what must it be like? You're an immigrant arriving in Britain, that's even without the whole Farage stuff and all that Little Englander stuff going on at the moment, and or wherever you go, and you're that minority. And for what a part of me thinks, it's quite good. It's good for me to feel that.
Yeah.
Because I'm not, because we're all like used to living here in Britain, as
I suspect that the whole immigration issue, in about 12 months' time, no one's going to talk about it at all in this country, because I think, as is the case with every racist-based populist movement that I can think of, it's all based on lies to start off with. If migration figures carry on the way, I think in just this year, we move into a state where we start losing money rather than gaining money. For example, the visa system currently generates just under £8 billion a year. So when you get fewer people applying for visas, you get less income coming in. And so you go into a negative economic spiral. So zero net migration will hurt this country economically, which is why it's very interesting that most commentators now are observing that Farage is moving on to talking about benefit claimants, all the usual stuff you hear from the Tories. So, your lazy kids, lazy, everyone's lazy.
Let's pick on the
because
ones,
migration, the Labour actually, I mean, they have succeeded in reducing net migration. Now, the problem that they have to ask themselves is, does anybody who vote Labour really care significantly about net migration, or has Labour spent all this time working on a policy that has actually cost them their core support, won them no new support, and ended up, I mean, I genuinely think that after how many ever years, 10 years we've had of talking about nothing but, rather like the Brexiteers who don't want to talk about Brexit anymore, I suspect we won't hear boo to a goose about migration in 12 months' time.
I mean, I'm hoping, that it will swing the other way, and that we will stay, we will return to the EU in some form or other. And because, my God, wasn't it just a better vibe all round? I mean, and I mean, all those things that I could do as a teenager, and all the teenagers now and young people now, they can get on an interrail and stuff, but it's like, they're looking at the clock, they can't go there and live there and study.
I interviewed Mel Stride. Christ, what's his shadow role? Is he? I think he's Shadow Chancellor, isn't he? I lose track. And Sir Mel Stride was reacting to news that Labour was looking to develop closer links to the EU, and the story was, it's going to cost us £1 billion a year to rejoin the EU, and everyone was like, it's going to pay £1 billion a year. Isn't that awful? I said, well, why do you give £1 billion and you get 10 billion back? That's a brilliant deal. I don't think we want to talk about Brexit anymore.
Yeah, well, yeah. But let's get back to we've hurtled
We got Mel Stride in there. We got Mel Stride in.
Hurtled into politics. And funnily enough,
they said in a millennia from now, greasy-haired private school girl, just no.
Funnily enough, I was going to have a section about politicians in the book, because there are various different chapters. One's called "All You Need Is Lovies," which is about the actors. One's called "Name Drops Keep Falling on Your Head," which is a title that Neil McCormick, the Telegraph critic, came up with. He said I should call the book that, but I thought it's music, right? And I was going to do one about politicians, and I started writing about the ones I'd met, and they were just so boring. All of them. I mean, they were just. It was like, I'm not going to put the reader through this. So we'll leave politics and move on to, let's go to do a bit of music. So you've actually performed with Hawkwind, or written with them?
Performed with Hawkwind, written with Hawkwind.
You're a Hawkwind fan first,
Yeah.
So how did that all come about?
So that was, originally I can remember a bloke at school called Adrian Porteous had a Masters of the Universe compilation cassette, and he used to play it on the way back from compulsory cross country on Saturday mornings. And I thought, well, this is rather good. And then became a fan, used to see them at gigs and festivals. When I first started at LBC, because I'm back there now, when I first started about 2002 or something, they came on as guests, and was stunned that I seemed to know the words to their songs better than Dave Brock, who'd written them, who was my guest, whose carrier bag smelled suspiciously of herbs.
What you'd expect from a rock
which
band
is what
in
you'd
that era.
expect.
Yeah.
And he listened to me singing along, on radio. And he goes, "Do you want to come and play with us in a couple of weeks?" And I'm like, yeah, all right.
So what, do you play guitar?
No, I can't do anything. I'm not remotely musical at all.
I just gave you a mic.
But I'm probably the greatest rock star never to have actually been a rock star. I can do it all apart from contribute musically. It's a bit like Bez, I suppose. But no, I mean, first of all, I did one of their tunes is called "Spirit of the Age," and it's an unusual song in every respect, and written by a bloke called Bob Calvert, who was a genuinely mad genius, and I sang that, and I didn't do too bad, even by my my high standards, really. And the fans seem to like it, and I'm really, I suppose, more. But as you get into the nuances, I'm a really big Bob Calvert fan. That probably supersedes my Hawkwind love. He was the lyrical genius that sort of puts you into a spaceship visually, imaginatively, and then takes you out to space.
Well, it's interesting that you're a fan of someone, and it's funny because like one of the themes of the book is meeting people who are famous, and then how that person deals with it and how the person who meets them deals with it in so many different ways. I mean, do you ever get sort of stopped in the street by people who either, sort of gush all over you or go, "You bastard," or whatever?
Very rarely is it nasty. The most unpleasant moments invariably are people talking to you at the urinal, which is just, I just think it's an absolute no-no. Selfies at the urinal, it's like, dude, fuck off. I mean, and so those ones.
Well, you're kind of cornered, aren't you? Because you're there with the old
yeah,
chap out and the urine's coming out. You can't move. You can't say see you later.
It's horrible, although I do feel like just turning around and spraying you. Sorry, you were saying, mate. What was that? Look, you're all wet. Maybe we'll do it another time. And obviously, I don't like any kind of intrusion with my daughter, which I think is people coming over and that. So you say no.
Well, that's one thing I've always noticed, that if there's one scene with Helena Bonham Carter, for example. I'm sitting outside a cafe, and someone said to me, "Oh, go and say hello to Helen," but she was with a kid. Yeah, and I just thought, when someone's with a kid, just leave them, because they've got enough on their hands. They don't need someone going, "Oh, hi, I'm right." Yeah. And it's but and of course there are times where it's appropriate and times when it isn't. And doing that Hampstead Village voice for 17 years now, walking up and down the high street. If I see Nicholas Parsons, I'm going to pop, and he was standing on the corner of where the coffee cup is, looking a bit lost. So I said, "Oh, hi, it's Nicholas Parsons, isn't it? Sorry to bother you." I always do the sorry to bother you first, and try and be polite and say, "Look, I don't suppose you'd like to do a little picture for the Hampstead Village voice." He was like, "I'd be delighted." And this is someone who I grew up. I mean, Nicholas Parsons in a way is someone who, God rest his soul's passed away now, but he's someone who was like a kind of TV, when TV really was something big. Because when we grew up in the 70s,
Quiz of the week,
80s, Quiz of the week, it's so
live
century
from Norwich. You mentioned Alan Parsons. My TV career started in Norwich, in the studio, where they used to
Partridge,
do.
Alan Partridge. Partridge, not Parsons. Not to be mixed up with Tony Parsnips. Parsons. It's one of those things but that 70s era, all that the theme tunes are the thing, aren't they? And before we started, I was telling you how I met David Soul, Antonio Fargas, and Paul Michael Glaser. A quick shout out to our sponsors, Little Alexander's, a fantastic hassle-free storage service. I can highly recommend them because they were a real lifesaver when I was leaving the country and I needed to store all my stuff somewhere. It's all door to door, so you don't have to travel or pack or go to storage units in the middle of nowhere. I just booked online, a polite team turned up on time, packed everything and took it away. A few months later, it all came back to my door in perfect condition. If you're in London and need to free up space, whether you're moving, renovating or going abroad for work, this really is the easiest, hassle-free option. Little Alexander's offers flexible plans, full insurance and a properly first-class service. If you want an award-winning storage service without any stress whatsoever, head to www.littlealexanders.co.uk and Little Alexander's will collect, store and return your things while you get on with your life. Before we started, I was telling you how I met David Soul, Antonio Fargas, and Paul Michael Glaser. So Starsky Hutch and Huggy Bear at once, completely unexpectedly in a very small cafe. And I already had met David a couple of times, so I knew him enough to say hi. And there was this kind of the little boy in me, the 9-year-old who used to watch Saturday night telly, which, if you remember, used to be Morecambe and Wise. There was Morecambe and Wise, and then I don't know what was after that, but there was obviously Starsky and Hutch, Match of the Day. Hang on.
Starsky and Hutch was 9 o'clock, wasn't it? Because it was a treat to stay up because it was violent.
That's right. I had my own little black and white telly, and I was a spoilt Hampstead.
Black and white telly.
What Ricky Gervais, because we can swear on podcasts, can't we? Yeah. Stand by for swear word. Hampstead cunt. That's what I am. So, and I had a little TV. So I had a little TV, and I used to just stay up eating sweets till midnight. No wonder I've turned into an addict. I mean, by the way, can I just, while I'm at this, I mentioned the word addict there. I have done a book called The Joy of Addiction. A small little plug for it there. It's a bit of a laugh, a memoir about addiction and Confessions of a Teenage Wastrel. I will say no more. It's on the Amazon Monster.
You transport me back when you're talking about 70s, you see, because I happen to know that you are conducting an interview with Little Nicky Horn, the legendary radio DJ, and my enlightenment, my personal age of enlightenment, was around aged 8 or 9. I think 8. So 19 73 or 74, and my parents bought me it was a very weirdly shaped radio that I still can't describe the shape to anybody. You said, why would you design a radio like that? And it had, and you will remember this, because you didn't have all that headphones and earphones thing. It had a mono brown, do you remember the brown cable and the brown earpiece that was like no human being's skin tone, black, brown or white. It just looked
beigey, browny,
really odd and medical, something medical about it. And I used to listen originally just to anything. And then gradually I got hooked into Little Nicky Horn on Capital Radio. Your mother wouldn't like it. It was the show. And he absolutely changed my life because he introduced me, because I didn't have an older brother. He introduced me to, my dad was quite into music in the sort of, he liked his Pink Floyd, he liked the Moody Blues, but Nicky Horn took me way, way, way out there. I mean, Frank Zappa, he used to play Frank Zappa on the air all the time. And that really, I suppose, Frank Zappa and the Grateful Dead, I like them more than Hawkwind. They're real passions. And that's all come from Little Nicky Horn.
Well, and of course, we're going to have to share with the listeners now the lovely little story that's come about in the last sort of 24 hours. So when I said to Matthew that Nicky Horn was going to be on the show after, he went, oh God, I'm a big fan of Nicky Horn's. I love it. And I thought, oh, well, that's great, because this book's all about that sort of thing, and the show's about that, sort of admiring people and whatever. And the nicest thing so Nicky called up yesterday and said, oh, I might have to do it by Zoom or something. But when I said, well, Matthew Wright's in before, you went, oh my God, I'm such a big Matthew Wright fan. In that case, I'll come.
We've Nicky Horn and I, again, thanks to the miracle of social media, so we've never actually met in person, but through, I think, originally Twitter and now on Blue Sky, obviously, because we don't do fascist.
Don't do it.
We've carried on that conversation, and he's just an absolute delight. So I just can't wait to meet him and give him a hug. But really, I can't overstate it that radio show and him specifically. Absolutely. I did Frank Zappa on Mastermind, and that started with Nicky Horn, me listening under the duvet in case my parents found out, on some weird surgical mono earpiece. Some people might say Frank Zappa sounds better on a mono earpiece, and I'll give you some of the albums, maybe it's true.
Well, it's something about Zappa that's so out there that it doesn't kind of matter what you listen to it on, in a way, but that's a bit unfair on Frank Zappa. I should say Frank, although I never met him. I have met Carlos Santana randomly in a Marriott in Hamburg, sitting at the bar with a friend and chatting with this hippie guy for half an hour. Then he went away. My friend hadn't said a word the whole time. He said, you do know who that was, don't you? He talked like that. And I said, no. And he went, it was only Carlos Santana. So it was one of those where, and I've had that a few times where I've met someone, I have not the foggiest who it is, and you just get on with them, and then they go away, and that's always a nice one.
I had a Live Aid 2, the Piss Up, which was some anniversary of Live Aid, and it was at Hyde Park. Pink Floyd were playing. That was the headline thing. I had massive back pain. I used to have back pain on my right hand side. I had a surgery, and this is before the surgery. And I can remember that they saw me hobbling in, and they thought, God, it's the first time I've been on one of the sort of golf buggy disabled, drive around things. They saw me, and they literally offered me a seat. But this is quite a long time ago. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I'm on a lot of painkillers. I get very pissed. I'm not having a good time. It's just not I don't really like ligging like that. It's just not my thing. And I end up talking to this very nice man, and shit-faced is the way I would describe myself at the time. I have very little memory of it, only what people told me afterwards anyway.
We know it. Yeah, been there.
And all of these music, all the music, fucking shit. Jake Shears from Scissor Sisters, that was. No idea. I've just been slagging off a bloke who's just been entertaining like 1 million people on air.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, we come from that generation. I mean, we grew up with that whole, I don't know what your growing up at school was like, but, I grew up in that punk skinhead kind of era, and it was either you got beaten up by skinheads or you hung out with the punk rockers. And so I hung out with the punk rockers because, I mean, they were rude and they were nasty, and they could give you a kicking.
That's so spot on, Basti.
But they were nicer than the skinheads. And so I hung out with them, and that's why I got into drugs and stuff, you know. And I started smoking cannabis, and it is a gateway drug. It leads to stronger things because you're at the dealers, and then the dealer offers you something else or whatever. Anyway, and as an addict, now a recovering addict, thankfully, I don't do it anymore. But it's actually one of my pet hates of the modern era, is when I'm walking down the street and the smell of hydroponic cannabis is forced upon me, whether I like it or not. And sometimes I'm sitting in my front room and in it wafts through the window. It seems to be everywhere at the moment.
Yeah.
It's not the stuff we used to smoke.
No.
And it's like, it's so heavy and kind of old, drainy, smelly stuff. I feel a bit sorry for the modern generation, because when we puffed, at least it was sort of, you know, kind of ganja, you know, it was kind of natural smelling weed. And it went along with listening to Bob Marley and the Wailers, and it had a kind of a thing.
The acid was better then as well, kids. Trust me.
Well, no, but I went psychotic on the acid. It was too good.
It wasn't for everybody.
No, it lost I'm talking about mental health. I had 18 months of like people, my friends would cross the road. You know, it got that bad. When I was 18, 19, it was very bad. But I've gone on a tangent, as we do, waffling on. That's why we name drop, waffle. But yeah, that whole punk rock thing.
Mine was, you see, the thing that I can remember, that you got beaten up by skins or beaten up by the skinheads, and the skinheads were meaner. Skinheads or punks would beat you up both. So I joined the bikers.
That was your survival
and
mechanism.
that was my survival mechanism. Right. And to this day, so my hobby is fiddling with old motorbikes.
Right. Well, that's good.
So it never left me, really.
You had to find a tribe.
Yeah, exactly that.
And
it was amazing, because as soon as I went into the biker pub, my life changed, because all the hassle stopped.
Yeah, now bikers were pretty kind of straightforward.
Yeah.
A biker I had a horrible moment with a biker, though. The bad thing about, I've got one bad biker trauma, is that when I was madly in love, the girl I lost my virginity to, madly in love with her, and but she wasn't that impressed, because, you know, we're never good the first time, are we? Anyway, so she took me round to this guy's house. She said, "Do you want to roll a joint, Sebastian?" I went, "All right." So I'm rolling a joint.
I love the voice.
The next thing he's got his tongue down her throat, and she's not objecting. And I'm sitting there going, "Oh," my whole life collapsed. So that's my memory of a biker. His name was Mitch. If you're out there, Mitch, I'm after you, son. So it's funny, I still remember his name.
I can remember these two bikers very late into a very late night, and they're sitting in the kitchen, and one of them was called Spaniel, and the other one was called Bandit, and Bandit was called Bandit because he only had one arm, and it was like, "No one makes a cup of tea like your mum, Bandit." No, yeah. It's like 5 o'clock in the morning. He's hairy, biting one with one arm. "No one makes a cup of tea like your mum, Bandit."
But it's funny you should say that, because I had an interview with John Moss, the drummer of Culture Club, and now of Ridiculous, my band. So me and John are kind of pally, and we're best friends actually. And he said, "Yeah, there's always someone called Spanner, and there's always someone called whatever it was. There was always someone
Tiger, Tigger. There's lots of tigers and tiggers out there."
So moving on, Cringeworthy meets. So I'll just show you my Cringeworthy meet. My worst of all was, you're a Hawkwind fan, I'm a Beatles fan. Never the twain shall meet.
Well, no.
But I never met. There's a chapter called "I've Never Met a Beatle." Which you'd think, well, what do you write about then? But I lived upstairs from a restaurant in Hampstead, and I walked out, and Kaz, the waitress, came up to me and said, Bast, I shouldn't be telling you this, but George Martin's in the restaurant. Go and give him your demo." And I'm like, "That's not how it works." And I said, "That's not how it works." She said, "Well, when else are you going to meet George Martin?" I thought, she's got a point. And I was in my 20s, and I thought, "Oh, sod it." And what I'm thinking, am I going to annoy George Martin at a restaurant with my demo? Of course I did. Needless to say, he just sort of went, the eyes rolled, and it was like, "Oh, really?" You know, and it was just the most cringeworthy, and it was like, don't meet your heroes moment, but certainly not.
Mate, you work with Ringo fucking Starr. Have a listen.
Ringo Starr's one of the greatest drummers of all time. He's a great drummer.
He wasn't even the greatest drummer in the Beatles.
That's
you know
just
that.
So rubbish. Ringo, if you're watching this, you are a classic, and the Beatles wouldn't have worked without you. And he had this laid-back style.
Buttons pushed. Triggered.
We are the
triggered.
Beatles. We are the
triggered.
Beatles. It's like the only thing I'm fanatic about, and we go on about this like being a fan, right? The word is fanaticism,
yes,
and it is quite a weird thing, so it can tilt over.
Yes,
you know, you might bump into to Larry Dave and say, I'm a big fan of your work, and I go, well, thank you, that's fine, right? But if you're like a fan, right, like a fanatic, and I am a Beatles fan, I am an Arsenal fan, and it's really odd because when I meet Arsenal players, for example, I'm always a little bit like, oh God, bit, what do I say? And that said, they're all pretty chill people and they're all quite cool. But I was always more relaxed with meeting Tottenham players because it was like, who the fuck are you?
Don't care, yeah.
So, but in a funny way, it's sort of, you don't put people on a pedestal. So is there anyone, people you've met where it's sort of gone a bit wrong?
So almost all of them, really. That's there was the scenarios that they wanted. So I had a lovely, I had a crazy one where I had to go and interview Boyzone or Westlife. Boys Life, West Zone, one of the boy bands. And it was, we were going to the Halcyon Hotel back in the day in Maida Vale. It was very poncy, very posh. Lots of rock stars would go down there. Oh, yeah. And the idea was this lunch was going to be a kind of chance for me to meet the boys and settle our differences for positive coverage moving forward. And I just thought, well, lunch at the Halcyon, fucking I'm in, and they're paying. So I agree, and I go down and meet the boys and of West Zone and sit down. This is gonna be a long fucking lunch. And my photographer goes, "Have you seen who's over on the next table?" And I went, "No." And I look, and I can't, just two old blokes. And he goes, "It's Robert De Niro." Oh. I said, "You what?" "It's Robert De Niro."
You whispered that. Could you think they'll hear that?
So
he said Robert De Niro.
So I could try and get my lunch with West Zone's Life boys in the paper, or I could just get up, completely ignore them and sit down with Bobby. So I obviously did that. And so that was
beautiful.
That was kind of cringy. But then when I said, she's De Niro, I mean, there's just a story in itself. He is like a supermodel. He is the actor. He is what a supermodel is to modeling, what an actor in acting, in as much as he's a utterly blank canvas. So the real Robert De Niro is a sort of, I mean, it's just if I'm trying to find the right word, like insignificant presence. He just is not really there, not difficult to talk to. Just I just said I'm the manager of West Zone Boys Life, and just finally got chatting
to try and emoliate
he was over working on something I think called The Monk, and got talking about London, chitty chat, asked him. I said I've been over to Tribeca, so it was with Whitney Houston, which was true. It was name dropping.
We love name dropping.
I mean, I was being kept behind a barrier away from Whitney Houston, but in theory I was in New York with Whitney, and Bobby didn't know Bobby by now, but he didn't need to.
Your mate Bob.
Bob. He didn't need to know the details, and in the end, I got my band to come over and do a photo with me and Bobby.
Oh, well, that's nice. That's nice. Yeah.
But they're still going on. Whenever I randomly meet the members, they still go, "You fucking liar! You had us out for a fucking lunch. You never wrote anything about us. All about Bobby De Niro."
Of course we did. Well, I mean, but that's the thing. You're a writer, a kind of celebrity gossip column writer.
Yes, I was back in those days.
In those days,
mischievous. I quite liked, because I wasn't interested. Like you just said about your Arsenal Spurs things. I have no interest in meeting any of these. Who was the one? Bryan Adams?
Yeah, Bryan Adams.
Always like number one forever. And the guys with the hair, the rockers, Bon Jovi.
Yeah.
So for some bizarre reason, I suppose my career elided with them at the top of their careers, or maybe in Bon Jovi's edging towards the bottom of their career, and I just kept having to interview them, maybe 6 months apart, maybe sometimes only 3 months apart. I can remember at one point Bryan
Adams.
Is it Bryan? Yeah, Bryan Adams, Canadian guy.
Yeah, that's it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I can remember as I'm walking into the room, he's looking at me. He just goes, "Oh."
No, but it's true, isn't it? It's funny. So Bryan Adams is one of those funny ones because he's someone who he was on Top of the Pops like every week. Massive.
Forever.
He was just like the biggest star in the world, and yet I don't know. He didn't feel like a star.
Very nice man. Just
probably is.
Dull.
He just didn't feel like someone. A good singer. I mean, but not someone who kind of maybe go wow.
Just dull.
Yeah. That said, those are the people that when I meet them, I get on a lot better with them because it's kind of easy. I don't know how dull he is.
Proper dull.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, okay. So,
no,
sorry, Bryan, if you're
yeah,
watching.
If,
but,
if it was a crowded room of three, right, you'd make for the other person as quick as you could. All right, Bryan. How you doing, Basti? Nice to see you again.
Yeah,
That kind of thing.
I got kind of the same vibe of Christian Slater, actually, when I was sitting next to him once, and he was talking to a couple of mutual friends, and it was like, well, what? It was sort of like, okay, look, let's not go down the tabloid route of slagging people off. I'm sure they're both really nice guys.
Yeah.
And the one thing I've tried to do in this book is to try and keep it positive. Although there are times where I've met people who have behaved in a very strange way towards me, or have been like very rude, even though I was just politely asking them if they'd like to do something for the Village Voice or whatever. And as a journalist, it's kind of your
job.
It's your job to go up and say, look, hi, sorry to bother you, but might you be interested? And one or two, and I'm not going to mention names, you know why? Because in this sense, because I just didn't put them in the book at all. I dropped them completely because they were just looked at me like I was shit on the end of their shoe. I will tell one story, if I may.
Go on.
I was DJing a fashion event in Birmingham, and Karen Brady, the then Birmingham City chairperson, and recently West Ham,
Surely the greatest business executive of all time, if the tabloids are to be believed.
Maybe, but certainly the rudest, snobbiest, unfriendliest I've ever met. I just handed her a microphone, and I was going to say to her, oh, remember to turn on the... And she just took it and started talking. It didn't work because she hadn't turned the button up. And I said, no, you've got to put the button. She went, oh, fucking hell, like that. And she was just all really like, oh, God. And afterwards I said, oh, well, look, nice to meet you. And she just walked off. And it was I just thought, okay, I'm just your little servant boy. And, it felt like that. It was just so rude. And there's no need for it, is there? I mean, we all have bad days.
Everybody has bad days. And I guess that's the thing to bear in mind. You never know. But you also get lots of mischievousness out there sometimes. I think people respond.
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, also, what's his name? Robert Green, the England goalkeeper, who famously let a ball go through his legs, and I just wanted. I was taking pictures of people in Hampstead. And I just said, oh, Robert, would you like to do a picture? He was just shut the door. It was like, because the rest of the press were all on him.
Yeah.
And I wasn't coming from that angle. I just wanted to say, oh, Hampstead face, right? Take a photo and a smile. Right, that's it. But how is he to know that? He's living a life of misery because everyone's on him. Yeah.
I think the circumstances under which everybody, not just those in the public eye, but more intensely, I suppose, live because of social media. You can't ignore, and we were reflecting, me and my colleagues, the other day on why it feels we've had such a run of terrible politicians. I think you could probably argue why we've had such a run of terrible celebrities, because really you think back to the glory days of the 70s, and there's just so much exposure and pressure that, back in the day, if what you learned about your politicians was delivered broadly by the newspapers. It was a 24-hour cycle at that, and often things moved much slower. And now we've got the second by second. I don't know. I've actually genuinely lost count of the number of radio phone-ins I've done in the last 18 months, 2 years since Starmer came to power. If we're doing this and you're watching in the year 3028, 1,000 years ago, so and it's just the pressure. Starmer must go. Starmer must go. Starmer must go. Starmer must go.
It's just hatred, isn't it?
Well,
it's not even about.
But it's the amplification that beforehand nobody had a voice beforehand. Only newspaper editors had a voice, and politicians. And now everyone's got a voice and everyone's got something to say. But of course, unfortunately, having something to say is different to having something of value to say.
Look, Starmer was like the lesser of evils, as politicians always are. Yeah. And if the other alternatives are, well, Badenoch and Farage. I mean,
they did spend
neither of which
14 years in opposition, Labour, and you'd have thought you'd have come out of the traps better prepared than they did after 14 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm really interested in water campaigning, and by the time Keir Starmer goes, as I'm sure he will go, if you're watching this 1,000 years ago, he resigned a couple of days after the council elections of 2026. The water system is no different today than it was when they came to power. It's just a piece of shit.
Yeah. No, it's true.
And they're saying, migration's gone down. I don't give a toss about migration. If I cared about migration, I'd have voted for reform.
Yeah.
I care about, being socially progressive.
It's not just politicians, it's actually music, funnily enough, as well. And,
what's happened to music? When I was 18,
70s, 80s, 60s, 70s, 80s, or even 50s,
how many
rock and
labels
roll.
were there? How many labels were there in 1980 in the UK? 400, 500?
Yeah.
How many do we have today?
Yeah.
3?
The quality, the bands, the music you're hearing today, okay, computers and modern technology has a lot to answer for, because a lot of modern music sounds like it's been pushed through some sort of machine
to make everything perfect.
It's so perfect. There's no kind of vibe to
humanity
it.
To it.
Yeah. It's actually George Orwell pretty much summed it up in 1984. I think it was called the musicatron or something, that all music
processed music, yes.
Yeah, processed music. And as usual.
Frank Zappa predicted something very similar in the mid-80s when Reagan was in power.
Ah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, well, Matthew, our time's nearly up.
Really? I'm only 60.
Well, yeah. Do you know what? It's funny, isn't it? Age, eh? It does. I'll tell you what. We've got a young lad here, Jamie. Our sound man.
I'm sitting on one butt cheek.
He's looking at us all gits, and he's thinking, "What are they on about?" But bloody old I am. Oh, me back, madam. But what happens is time suddenly goes like that and you're dead.
Yeah. First of all, that was it when you said it then.
I know. Everyone dies and then you die.
Yeah,
and that's it. Die. That's all that happens.
The funerals, you start going to funerals for it again. It's a laugh because all your mates are there. And then you start going to funerals and realising you're the only bloke there you know. And then you realise it's time to stop going to funerals and planning your own.
Yeah. Oh, dear. Anyway, look, it's been a real pleasure having you on.
Pleasure knowing you, Basti, quite frankly.
And you too. And but the strange thing is, we met on the dreaded Twitter, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
I mean, it's funny because I normally I bump into people in the street randomly or something, and only you and Eric Idle have I kind of had a name drop there for you.
Very good one.
A kind of.
You should take this up for a living, Basti.
Well,
I mean,
if someone paid me.
If someone wrote a book about it, I mean, I don't know, it would probably sell quite well.
I love the way he talks. Yeah, all I need is someone to kind of hire me and pay me, and that would be great. Just tell your producer agent to give me a call, mate, because I haven't got one.
I tell you what, they pay them. You wouldn't want them. I shouldn't say that out loud. I'm discussing company.
No, agents.
Business.
It's a funny thing because I was going to think of calling this no agents or something, because this is only people who I've bumped into and met. And it was funny when Nicky Horn said yesterday, I've got to call my agent. I thought, okay, well, that's, you're doing this as a favor, it's not like I'm paying you heaps of money.
No.
You've got a cup of tea.
You've got a cup of tea.
And
I've got to see you, which is more to the point.
You're going to get the book as well.
Which is very nice.
Signed.
But I also get to see you. We had a very nice walk a fair few years ago now.
On the Heath,
very helpful on many ways. As indeed was reading your Joy of Addictions book. I found it really insightful and really helpful.
Well, thanks, Matt. That's great. I mean, it's lovely to be able to, the thing is, having hit rock bottom emotionally myself and gone to a dark place where you're on your own and there's nothing, and whether it's drugs or whatever it is that gets you there, once you get through that, and being fortunate enough to have got myself into recovery and done the whole NAAA thing and everything, I don't mind sharing that about myself, is that I'm in a position then for other people who are, if they're going through a bit of a space or whatever, and we all do at some point in our lives, we're all going to go through, I suppose are there people who just go through this kind of life's great all the time thing and never have a...
I've got a doctor friend who's in her late 40s and she's not had anyone of significance die in her life. And we were talking about that, and I found that just absolutely extraordinary.
Yeah. No,
I just found that extraordinary. I said, I think you're in for a bit of a shock when it happens, darling.
Yeah. Well, it's going to happen, and we get it repeatedly. And what can we do? We
smile
live,
on.
Smile on. Live for the now is what I'm saying. This is the moment. This little moment we've got here now, Matthew. Thanks so much. Lovely to see you. And tune in for the next edition of Name Drop Me Never. Cue the music.